Welcome to the module on transnational corporations, the governance of foreign investment. In terms of the theoretical backdrop related to the transnational corporations, we actually discuss on the concept of globalization that has evolved across the country and across the nations. So, issue of globalization appears one of the most debatable topics of today, where the proponents of the globalization or the optimistic views of globalization has actually identified three particular trends in the global political economy. The first one is the entry of the private models or the private players or the MNCs, which are basically the influence of transnational corporations. The second one is minimizing the role of government or decreasing the influence of the nation state. And third one is creating the regions as a new space for economic activities. So this new space brings in innovations, brings in modern technologies and sophistication in the production process. So all these are basically the major trends which are evolved after the globalization in this new era. This basically refers to how the development of globalization has spread across the world. Firstly, it has been seen that by the ongoing revolution of information and communication technologies, globalization has come up in a bigger shape. This also boils down to say that globalization is a phenomena which has some kind of similarities with the policy of colonialization of the British, but in that case it was a huge transaction cost because of the shipment of the goods and services. But in globalization, there is zero transaction cost in terms of information which is transmitted to any corner of the globe within a nanosecond. So that makes the spread or the revolution of IT to spread out across all sectors and across all nations in a smooth and a convenient manner. So the rapid globalization which has occurred across the globe is caused by the intensification of the efforts, which means the countries have come up with the reform process with changes in the policies and the strategies to promote free trade. And this free trade calls for a trade without any restrictions throughout the world. Political changes in many countries because of the advent of globalization, the political landscape or the political fabric of the country went for a change, accompanied by efforts to expand free enterprise. So this free enterprise means the liberal enterprises which have also received some of the fiscal benefits or some of the incentives from the government, and thereby they are taking in a joint effort to protect the environment. This environment takes care of economic and non-economic environment together. Moreover, in terms of globalization, we call for the most important agent or the instrument that was very much playing an instrumental role in it is none other than transnational corporations. And that is one of the reflection of globalization across the globe. So first and foremost, the manifestation of globalization is the phenomena of international business. So by international business, we mean basically the participation of the home country with the world trade or collaborating with the foreign partners in order to set up the affiliate or in terms of trade mechanisms or investing at abroad. So all these are different modes of international business that has come up. Wherein the important role is played by the subject of international economics, which is supporting the deepening in internationalization process in the global environment. So internationalization refers to how the international competitiveness of the domestic products were made and how it has been standardized in this process. So this calls for the advent or the entry of transnational or multinational organizations or corporations. Transnational corporations are a result of scientific and technological revolution. There is a thin layer of difference between TNC and MNC. So whenever the transnational companies come in, they carry with the manpower, the skill and expertise of the country from where they're originating, and they're spreading its unit in the host country. But in multinational corporations, in most of the cases, are basically building the capital base or the infrastructure of the host country and also the manpower of the country where it is invested. So thereby the MNCs are creating livelihoods at the same time, but they are mainly starting from the scratch because they are taking care of the existing manpower of the country where they are investing capital. So transnational corporations are the result of scientific and technological revolution which they have there in the advanced countries, and now they want to spread out on the developing countries. And they are playing a very, very important role in the modern economy. So the two aspects of the MNCs are taken care of. The first one of the TNC, that is said, that's a modern industrial company which is playing a dominant role in the economy, and also it has an administrative network. That means the managerial autonomy is not being transmitted to the host country. They maintain an administrative network and thereby the decisions which made. So at the international level, the issue of multinational companies is same as a large national firm in a particular country, because the multinationals are basically operating across the globe, and this is very much similar with their rent-seeking activity, because they spread their units across the globe and they extract surplus from every corners. This also goes back to the major resolutions of UNCTAD, whereby the policy framework, the regulations, the resolutions are built up. This is the Conference of United Nations Organization on Trade and Development, which has followed from the World Investment Report. So transnational companies or corporations are the legal entities or the entities without legal personality, consisting of parenting companies and their foreign affiliates. So this affiliate can be spread out across the world, and thereby they set up in any country whereby exit is difficult, so there is high sunk cost associated with the TNC. So the parent company is defined as the enterprise that controls the assets other than the mother country and owning a capital stake. So thereby they are exercising the decisive power, the administrative power. And foreign affiliate is a legal entity which can be an investor as a resident in the other economy, but also participates in the long-term interest of the management of the company. So according to the UNCTAD definition, three definitions were put forward. First, regarding the transnational corporations, where there are two major keywords. One is the parent company and one is the foreign affiliate. So foreign affiliate is where the investment is being done, and it can be multiple across different sectors of the globe. This also brings down what is the major function of the TNCs as they come up. So TNCs are the businesses that produce and sell their products in more than one country and create added value. As we take the name of Sony Ericsson, Sony from Sweden and Ericsson from Japan, and it is said that both of them are basically collaborating and spreading their units across the globe. So this is basically making the transnational or multinational companies to produce and exploit the world in the value addition, and that is what that is being created. A multinational company is considered to be a company which conducts research, production, sales, other activities in different countries, not just at its headquarters. That means in terms of MNC, we can see that the research division as well as the production cells, it also takes the help of the capital or the resources of the country where it is being investing capital, and also it's spreading across the globe. And TNCs actively create relatively stable, internationally operating corporate networks with its suppliers, customers, and cooperating partners. That means TNCs are basically expanding in the global supply chain. They're following a network chain and making all the suppliers, customers, and the cooperating partners to get linked to a single unified network. This also calls for retail revolution or a global supply chain management. Thereby, we are introducing two important terms. One is called transnationalization and later on internationalization. So by transnationalization, it is basically a new terminology in the global landscape in terms of the political economy, that it brings a qualitative change into the international economic space. This qualitative change is in terms of improvement in the quality standards, also taking care of the taste and preferences, the ethnicity of the other countries, and also ruling out the barriers and also bridging the gap between any kind of cultural distinctions. So it gives rise to a very important subjects of transnational corporations. So it also brings in qualitative effects and dependence between the states along with the economies at the state level and at the TNCs and also other companies. So basically TNCs are instrumental to create a bigger economic space in the global forum. Transnational processes and relationships means something beyond, which is the border of state-national, because they are operating at cross borders and thereby wants to mitigate any kind of conflict or differences in the ideologies that may arise across the borders and making the growth to be more and more global for the creation of a global governance order. Moreover, transnational corporation is such a company that controls and manages the asset, generating income in one country, involved in international production and financed by FDI. Because in most of the cases, the capital account of the balance of payment is financed by the FDI and that takes care of the TNC. So these TNCs makes very much clear about financing the model of investment of a developing country or the country where they are investing. So it has been seen that in the process of globalization, as it in the 1980s, where the hallmark of evolution has been increase in the quantitative as well as qualitative changes. So quantitative changes in terms of rise in the service exports or rise in the FDI inflows and thereby bringing in much substantial growth in the GDP. And in terms of qualitative, which takes care of technological, organizational management, also quality of growth and also the quality institutions which have come up. So this made the TNCs and the MNCs to operate together and spread the motto of internationalization or transnationalization. Moreover, it is said that the new forms of specialization has evolved either in terms of artificial intelligence or by the digital world or by institutionalization has come up with a more greater regulatory framework, creating of planetary flows and processes in the real time. This also takes care of the movements which are there across the capital flows, new insights into the structure and changes of comparative advantage. This also takes up a bigger shape. So all these are making economic development to be more focused, to be more planetary in terms of making it more focused and determined and also with targeted goals. So in terms of maintaining a better and a friendly international economic relations, it is very much important to understand the consequence of international corporations so that the global and the state policy may work in order. In this context, we thereby bring in the role of TNC in terms of its advantages. First and foremost, the proprietary technology. So whenever the TNC comes in, the technology transfer that takes place among the different countries, the proprietor or the proprietorship is basically acquired by the foreign firm or the country from where the technology is actually originating. Secondly, the TNCs are very much concerned about the goodwill based on the brand name and in terms of economies of scale. This refers to whether they are operating on higher production or a lower cost or large volume in the purchase. This also refers to the sales volume of the output that they are generating. In terms of the TNC, there has been always some kind of improvement or some kind of better performance of human resources. Because human resource management is one of the most important component of human capital, which calls for better skills, better managerial expertise, and also better efficiency. So TNCs are always quality conscious and they always strive for better human capital. The ability of international marketing or multinational marketing also is important, thereby searching for better export destinations, looking for better attractive trade corners and making the products to be more customized or internationally competitive. Multinational diversification is a part of the process of international trade or the TNCs, because TNCs has to go for diversification of the product and also manufacturing of close substitutes of the product. And at the same time, management experience also comes up as a process. There are certain risk factors associated with the entry of TNC to any nation. And those risk factors are the points of caution or areas of concern where the policymakers must address adequately. The first one is, it is basically not at all following the issue of the global order of making the country to be self-sufficient, Rather, the pessimist view that entry of TNC or the anti-globalization sentiment always say that the entry of TNC strengthen the dependence of less developed countries on the richest countries. That means the dependency model develops and thereby the countries are dependent on the advanced nations, which may lead to their dominance or acquisition of power in future. Secondly, by moving the production to countries where lower standard of living and wages, they hindered the growth of living standards. This is basically being said that if the developed country wants to collaborate with the developing country, there are much differences in their standard of living and their quality parameters. So through TNC, there can be a compromise, and this compromise can be with the qualitative indicators. Thirdly, by transferring of assets to countries with lower social contribution of payments, they minimize their tax burden. Because in most of the cases, the tax evasion mechanisms are there in the TNCs, where TNCs take hold of a country where they have a comparative cost advantage. Either a labor surplus economy where wage bargaining will not take place, lower cost can be offered, or a country which is endowed with natural resources. These are the major factors where the TNC can attract or would like to invest, and thereby the tax burden can be shifted to them and the country may not realize that in the short run. And also in most of the cases, the state is very much eager to provide some fiscal incentives or fiscal benefits like tax exemptions, infrastructural benefits, and so this will make the TNCs to evolve in a broader shape. But they may affect the internal or the domestic country's interest or the domestic country's vision in the near future. One of the most important instrumental factors to facilitate TNC is foreign direct investment or the role of FDI. So it is said that in international business, the most important and the stable capital flow had been foreign direct investment, where the direct word refers to a close association with the investing country and the host country government in terms of setting up different affiliates. These affiliates can be starting from partnership models or a public-private partnership models or any such of unit which can start from a greenfield investment. Greenfield investment refers to a sort of investment which starts from the scratch, that only the land is being provided by the government and they have to start their factory or their unit taking care of the human resources, the physical capital and all the resources of their home country. So that means it is said that in terms of multinational or transnational companies, they actually exceed or execute their international business by exporting FDI to different countries worldwide. So this has come up in the sectors which are manufacturing, in the services, even in the priority sectors it is being seen. As it is seen that in most of the economies, the current account deficit is proposed to be financed by stable capital flows like FDI. So a global company would organize its business from a research and development orientation through production, distribution to final sales and marketing, and thereby an internationally integrated complex will build up. And this is very much inherent within the principle of foreign direct investment because it refers to a capital goods base which will augment skill formation, which will also enhance managerial expertise and contribute to the long-term growth of the economy. Because it also carries a long-term stability in its basic principle because of high sunk cost and obviously more stable than other form of capital flows. Moreover, we can see in terms of the FDI, there has been a general tendency to extract or draw raw materials from the cheapest sources, manufactures, and then assembling in a place. This also goes to the concept of industrial restructuring that has followed with international development for any economy. This industrial restructuring means an assembled product has come up, where in case of automobile industry it is found as it is seen that the engine part can be from Japan, the body part can be from China, and India retains the proprietorship. So in the small car factory or in case of K-series engines, this assembled product has come up in a broader space with the entry of private players or with the industrial restructuring model. And this takes care of the labor which is cheaply available, managerial and technical resources, and economically viable cost. So all these are some of the factors which will attract the FDI for any nation given the political and the economic scenario. At the same time, domestic foundations also play an important role. So as a result, in terms of the collaborative effort or in a holistic vision, FDI augments the capital base. Definitely the domestic investment and the investment climate of a nation is better or becomes conducive. Enhances skill formation because any human resource management needs to be channelized in a better model. Boost efficiency because any kind of nation which wants to go from or make a transition from factor-driven growth to efficiency-driven growth has to take care or has to take help of foreign direct investment in selected sectors. And definitely the growth potentials can be boosted. So all these are taking care of the socio-economic status or the landscape of a nation. Hence, there has been some of the global responsibilities of the TNCs. So in order to facilitate FDI, in order to promote internationalization and also for a global governance order, TNC has to deliver certain global responsibilities. Like the responsibilities are given in order to address the global activities like environment, taking care of the environment sustainability, environment protection in terms of optimum use of the energy resources, human health. This takes care of the health of the labor force so that they will be more productive and they have a decent standard of living. Corporate social responsibility, that is CSR. This is very much found in terms of the companies which also has a responsibility to share their output or share the surplus with the society for public interest. And regulation of different interest. This refers to a regulatory body which will try to address the interest of capitalist classes and also the socialist classes, that is private and public sector both together. So the goal is how to meet the social responsibility of the TNC is to ensure a goodwill, because the TNC will be evaluated in terms of its track record, in terms of its fame and reputation. Obviously, tradition in the delivery of goods and services, particularly quality, is to be taken up. Definitely making success in making the business plans, definitely going for sustainable growth, and moreover for human resource development, because that is one of the most important productive factor of any nation is to build up the human capital, and that's a dynamic process in terms of updates, in terms of knowledge acquisition and knowledge creation. That is why in a political economic scenario, we say the building of knowledge capital or knowledge-based economy. However, there are certain risks associated with TNC or risk associated with the international business. The most important risk that comes up is decline of the market, which is very volatile in the sense a crash in the stock market or any crash in any of the economic fundamentals can be a threat to the TNC. So multinationals can have an impact on the government policy, and thereby in some cases there can be decline of the market in terms of the economic parameters. So in order to reduce healthcare, some countries force pharmaceutical companies to license their patents to local competitors for a low fee. This is somewhat some kind of a dominance or excessive dependence on the richest countries can come about. This was already discussed in the disadvantages of the TNC. That means in order to improve the health standards, the country or the government might be compelled to accept any kind of pharmaceutical company's investment or vaccine to come up to license their patents. And as a result of that, this may also affect to compromise with the cost, because they might be compelled to purchase at a higher cost so that the health standards of the country can be improved. This is very much observed in case of a dominating country or advanced country exercising dominance over the less developed economy or a nation which is having some inefficient or highly poor health standards. Secondly, the concept of lobbying, which was very much there in a political framework of capitalist economies, which calls for corporate lobbying. So this is directed to the range of business enterprises who is to enjoy certain benefits in a consistent manner, because there is no such kind of rules that you have to maintain in terms of pollution standards, or environmental regulations are somewhat relaxed for them. So as a result of that, multinational perspective will come up and they will try to invest in a country where less pollution hazards are there in terms of regulations and controls. And it's an experience across the globe that FDI gets attracted to those nations where the environmental regulations are flexible or less stringent. This is one of the fear factor of TNC to invest in any nation. So companies heavily investing into pollution control mechanisms can incorporate very strict environmental standards. So any nation should be also strict about the regulations, because if the regulations are flexible, it may be one of the way outs of the TNCs to come up. Moreover, it is seen that in most of the cases, TNCs are trying to have strong influence on the government. This is because the government at any point of time can be carried away by the much customized and sophisticated technology of the TNCs, so that the TNCs exercise a dominance on them. And this is basically making the threat of nationalization, forcing the company to sell their local assets to government or local stakeholders of the nation. So this can be the extreme threat of excessive dependence on foreign capital or foreign investments, where the local business can be washed away or the nationalization is a threat. So in this particular module, we basically refer to the definition of the TNC, where we go for internationalization, starting of the international business, how the MNCs will come up or TNCs will come up to facilitate trade and outward orientation. Concept of transnationalization comes with the research and development, setting up production units, selling it, and thereby building up human capital, infrastructure base, and also calls for a good governance. However, there are certain advantages and disadvantages of TNCs, particularly the disadvantages lies in excessive dependence on the richest countries. Thereby, the role of FDI can be explored, because FDI is one of the tools to facilitate the entry of TNCs, where it has a stable and high sunk cost, so it has a long-term objective of improving the growth potentials of the nation. However, too much reliance on FDI can be a threat to the nationalization in terms of excessive dominance and also in terms of influencing the government, which may not protect the domestic interest. So hence, the transnational corporations will be one of the catalytic role in international development, but the interest of the domestic counterparts will be taken care of.